Welcome back to Derek Rucker's Top 15. This is where the man to my left puts himself out there to the entire NBL world and ranks the preseason players from 15 through to 1. We've already had 15 through to 6. How's the feedback been on that so far?
Pretty high energy. Pretty high energy. Everyone's into it, which is great because this is exactly why I do it. I love it myself because I'm a basketball nerd and I like going through the lists and seeing who's what. But the public, I accept all comers. I love the fact that people get passionate about it, people get angry about it, people become elated about it. It's what it's all about, and as long as everything's authentic, I'm with it.
As a recap, Isaac Humphries from the Adelaide 36ers at 15, DJ Vasiljevic, his teammate, coming in at number 14, Milton Doyle, the championship winner from Tasmania, at number 13. At number 12, Jack White, who makes his return to the NBL with Melbourne United, as does Cam Oliver, who's back in the NBL. He's at number 11 from the Sydney Kings. At number 10, Sam Froling from the Illawarra Hawks, who Derek said could very well be the best Australian big man in the competition by the end of this season. Likewise for Keanu Pinder from the Perth Wildcats at number 9. Jalen Adams is an interesting one. I think a lot of people may have had the Sydney point guard higher than number 8. At number 7, Will Magnay from the Tasmania Jack Jumpers, and we rounded out the top 15 from what we've spoken about so far with Derek Walton Jr. from the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix at number 6. So let's just talk a little bit about the top 5, because this is the absolute upper echelon of players in this competition. What sorts, in your eyes, a top 5 player from a top 15 player?
So top 5 players, we start getting into the realm of you need to be box office. Do people talk about you? Are you a point of conversation when people are talking about the NBL? Do you draw fans? Do you perform on the biggest stage at the biggest moment? Preferably, you're a championship winner also. You've been around the MVP conversation. You have some type of historic legacy where 15 years from now, people are going to be referring to you as a great. You're memorable. So this is where these guys start to slot in. This is what separates the top 5 from the top 15.
That even got me a little bit fired up, I must admit. That's a very fair assessment.
You're going to be a top 5 all-time broadcaster in the NBL. Jack, you're safe.
You know how you stumbled and said 15 minutes? That's about where I sit right now. Let's go to number 5, because we are now, as we say, talking about the very best of the best. Number 5.
Deep breath here. Number 5 is Chris Goulding. The Melbourne United sharpshooter, one of the greatest scorers in NBL history, grand final MVP, championship series winner. There is no doubt that this guy is one of the true celebrities of the NBL. People love him, people hate him, but there's no denying when he's on the floor, you watch him. Chris Goulding slots in at number 5, which is slightly down from last season, but it's no reason to feel disappointed by that. Just being in the top 5 in one of the best leagues in the world is a wonderful achievement. And he's now in his mid-30s. It's even more spectacular achievement considering the depth and the amount of youth and talent in the competition. Is this maybe a slowdown year for Chris?
Not off last year.
Not off last year. History says it should be, but there's no guarantee because this guy is steely in the brain. And he has the ultimate level of confidence in himself. And even his performance last year in the championship series, when he was hurt, he was still able to go out there and get it done. And for all these reasons, that's why he's slotted in the top 5.
Father Time is undefeated, but he's certainly being challenged by Chris Goulding right now, who will hit 36 at some point during this NBL season. With the team that he's now got around him, does it allow him to play longer because of what he's got around him and not having to be the sole focus offensively?
Well, I think this season, if they utilize him properly, you don't want him out there playing meaningless minutes because Melbourne United are going to feature deep into the playoff run. And who's to say if he doesn't hurt his calf in that championship series, Melbourne United are not the championship winners. Everything was so thin last year in terms of margin for error. And, for example, Melbourne United were winning that series over 70% of all the games. They were in the lead. So if you have a healthy Chris Goulding, maybe things turn out differently.
Fascinating. He's still playing so well at the level that he is now. I mean, he just missed the Olympic selection not that long ago.
Some might say he should have been in that Boomers team. I mean, I know this isn't that medium. I don't know. Could have used a shooter out there at some point.
I think he would have been handy at some point as well. To number 4, I've no doubt this is going to have a lot of people talking and a lot of people asking some questions. So explain yourself.
Jarrell Martin. Adelaide 36ers big man. I think this was one of the best signings in the offseason. Here's a guy who was a championship winner from NBL 22. Remember, Jalen Adams was hurt during that championship series, wasn't able to make the contribution that he did during the regular season, and Martin came up big time. This is a guy who can put the ball on the floor. He can shoot the three. He's a big body. He's a type of asset that we rarely see in the NBL. Now, last season in Turkey, if you look at the aggregate numbers, you would say, okay, 9 points, 5 boards. But if you delve deeper, he only played 20 minutes a game. He was on a solid team, and the way they rotated the players, that was all about, was on offer to him. So I thought his numbers were very good. If you try and extrapolate that to the NBL, I think in a higher possession league, a faster paced league, there's a guy who could average 20 and 11 this season. And again, he's playing with another big man who's got serious talent. There's no saying that Jarrell Martin also does not play against someone who is just simply not capable of guarding him. He could have a massive season and become an MVP threat based on the way that Sixers team is built and what it forces the opposition to do in terms of defensive matchups, coverages, and schemes.
I've got to say, when you sent through this list, this was the one that really surprised me, and I think will surprise a few, no doubt. But this is your list, and these are your opinions. Are you at all concerned, though, that he's coming in from an injury from where he's played previously, and he may not be in peak condition straight away?
That is somewhat of a concern, and realistically, he's got about 5 weeks to get himself really cooking physically, but I think he's a professional, and he'll be up for it. I also think with everything that's happened in Adelaide, with the release of Scotty Ninnis, the changeover and everything, I think the players are on high alert now. And I think as a group, they've rallied together. And when that happens, sometimes it forces a self-critical analysis. Is like, what do I need to do now to help this group be better? And I would think as a professional, Jarrell Martin would be able to do that, understand what he needs to be better. And then I think I have no doubts that he is going to be a major impact in this league in NBL 25.
So rough maths has Isaac Humphries, DJ Vasiljevic, and now Jarrell Martin in your top 15. And you've already said that we don't know enough about Kendrick Davis yet to decide whether he belongs. So are you thinking that good things are going to happen with the 36ers?
Well, in my 2 early predictions, I had the Adelaide 36ers as my surprise packet, and that was pre-coaching change. Just based on the fact, Jack, we went down there and called that last game of the season in Adelaide. That is an outstanding venue. I think it's a great home court advantage. They packed that place out, and we know how much South Australians love the Sixers. It has always been a notorious place for visiting teams to try to come in and win games. With those 4 guys alone, it is feasible that they have 4 high-level impact players. Now, all of them need to stay healthy. All of them need to gel together. But if these things come together, you know, I envision Adelaide winning 80% of its home games. Wow. Then you only need to steal 5 or 6 on the road, and you're in the play-in.
Wow, that's going to be music to a lot of Adelaide 36ers fans' ears because it's been a rough few weeks, no question about that.
Some places, Jack, they call that Derek Math.
Derek Math. Yeah. Google that. See what comes up. To number 3, please drop it on us.
Number 3 is my man, Parker Jackson Cartwright.
Now he's your man. Now he's your man, is he? Now he's your man.
Parker Jackson Cartwright.
He was going to jump that commentary table and kick your head in last season.
Affectionately known as PJC.
Oh, we're on initial basis now, are we?
The diminutive point guard. He's only about 5'7", 5'8", but wow, does he play big, Jack. Last year I had him at number 7. He was incensed at that number. And Modi Mayor, before that playoff game, grabbed me and pulled me aside. So I already had a heads up from Modi. Modi's like, Derek, Parker is not happy with number 7. I said, okay, Modi. I didn't realize, Modi said not happy. I didn't realize the guy was livid. okay? So Parker goes out there, terrorizes the Sydney Kings, hits that step-back jumper to basically send the Kings packing for the season, and then once the hooter goes, we saw what happened.
Yes,
Parker came at me unexpectedly with a bit of vitriol that was far, far excessive, but hey, I'm all about it. And you know what? That made me respect him in all seriousness even more, because I understood how much it matters to Parker Jackson Cartwright to be good, to be excellent. And he deserves his spot now at number 3. And I think he is going to be even better this season. He's had one go around. He went over to Turkey after our season last year, didn't love the experience, and I think on the back of that, he is more appreciative of the NBL and more understanding of, like, this is a place where I can set down my roots and thrive and excel for a very long time.
It's interesting, isn't it? And obviously New Zealand have had a coaching change from when he re-signed, but even at the time, the Breakers said they didn't think Parker was coming back because there were so many offers all around the world for a caliber of that guy. But he is coming back. So what does that tell us about him as a person and his character that he wants to come back for more?
And he stuck with it. He came back for Montemayor. Make no mistake about it. He came back to extend that relationship and build upon what they were trying to create in New Zealand. Keep in mind, that team was a mash unit in the playoffs last series, and they came within a PJC 3-ball that rattled in and out down in Illawarra from advancing and playing against Melbourne United in the semifinal series. So I think that Parker is highly motivated. We know he wants to be an MVP level player. He is an MVP candidate this year, and I have my money on him being the MVP this year.
Wow, what a turnaround from this time last year, hey? What a turnaround. You're boys now, are you?
Yeah, we're buddies now. PJC, what up? Hit me up after this. Tell me if you like the ranking or not.
Give me a spell. He'll be cranky that he's not number 1, actually, but that's his makeup.
That's who he is, and I love that. He wants to be number 1, and you need guys like that. If you don't have a guy on your roster who thinks he's the best player in any given game, your team's probably in trouble.
Okay, if you're good at maths, and not just Derek maths, but maths in general, you'll have worked out that there are 2 names that we haven't spoken about yet. Question is, who's 2 and who's 1?
Number 2 is Bryce Cotton. Bryce Cotton, the multiple MVP winner, the multiple MVP championships winner, title holder. He's done it all. He's a top 7 player all-time NBL history, and this was a tough one. I feel that Bryce, as a fan, is one of my favorite players to watch in any league in the world. Bryce is amazing. He's quick. He's a showman. He can shoot the ball. He can score. There's just nothing that you cannot like about watching Bryce Cotton play basketball. He's in the perfect place for him out in Perth, and I hope he's there for the duration. And we look forward to watching him play again this year. I just don't know what else we can say about Bryce Cotton. He was outstanding last year. I thought Perth were handicapped by not having enough around him last season. Yep. They probably didn't get their import selections just right. They weren't bad, but they weren't at the level that's required to compete with a Tasmania, to compete with a Melbourne United. They don't have as much margin for error because I don't think their Australian and their local talent is as good as those other teams.
So when you say that there's nothing left to be said about Bryce Cotton, and we're talking about a 4-time MVP now, why is he not number 1? Why is he number 2? Is it just that someone you think is better? You don't think that Bryce has dropped off at all?
I don't think Bryce has dropped off at all. I think he is still on any night. He can win the game by himself. Sure. And there's only a few players in the league that we can say that about. But in particular from the guard position, Bryce is one of the few ever in this league to be able to impact games at such a high level night after night after night. The consistency that we see from him. And keep in mind, last season, people were starting to dig his grave. In the first 6 weeks, when he went through that really bad run, people were like, oh, Bryce has lost his step. Bryce is this, Bryce is that. And I was like, no, Bryce just had a little bad run. He'll figure it out. He's the smartest player in the league. He's going to go back to Perth, work on his game, watch video, talk to John Riley, understand what he needs to do to adjust, and then he went on one of the greatest runs we had seen in NBL history. And unfortunately, despite all of that, he's not number one.
Okay. Who is number one in Derek Rucker's top 15 preseason predictions?
The number one player in the top 15 is Xavier Cooks of the Sydney Kings. And this is a tough one. I went back and forth, but ultimately it came down to the last time we saw Xavier Cooks in the league, he was the best player. He was on the championship team. He was the league MVP. And I see no reason for any drop-off in his game or his performance since that time. He's basically had a year out of the league, which has taken him all over the world, from the Washington Wizards over to Japan. And there has been no significant decrease in performance. In fact, I think he's going to be a better player. I really enjoyed what I saw, albeit it was against the Chinese team. I really liked what I saw him when he was playing for the Boomers. He was getting the ball off the rim. He was pushing it. And like I said, rarely do we see someone with this amount of talent also have this motor. He's got a Rolls-Royce engine. And for those reasons, I have him as the number one guy.
How much motivation do you think he'll have coming into this season now that he wasn't selected for the Australian team at the Olympics? Now, he's spoken publicly and he understands the Brian Goorjian decision, and everything that I'm hearing and we're hearing is that he's getting on with business and he's getting back to work. But is that just a little extra motivator coming into this season?
We've never seen this before. His club coach cut him from the national team, and now they got to go kick it together for the next 3 years. We haven't seen this, and it conjures up so many emotions in me, because I always try and put myself in each person's position. So Xavier Cooks has much better character than me in this particular moment, because I would have been irate. I probably would have asked for a release from my contract to go do something else and find, because it would have been very hard for me. But Xavier Cooks has come out publicly, to his maximum credit, and said that the Boomers is separate to the Kings. And I admire that. And these guys apparently are just going to get on with their business. They're both all-time greats in the league. We love Brian Goorjian. We know that he had a job to do as the Australian coach, and he made his choice. And I think it's going to be fascinating to watch the dynamic between these two. They're great they're both outstanding individuals, and it's a rare thing in league history.
So Xavier Cooks is the preseason number one player in the competition, according to this man, Derek Rucker, alongside me. Hey, Ruck, a couple of questions before we finish up, and there'll be a lot of questions, no doubt, on social media. Don't forget, of course, that you can leave all of your questions, and no doubt you'll leave all of your thoughts on NBL's Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and on YouTube with the comments section as well. No player from Cairns or Brisbane. Should that be concerning for supporters of those teams?
Somewhat, although, early indications that Rob Edwards is a very good player. He's the import guard for the Cairns Taipans. There's been some scout out there saying that he could be a very dynamic and an impact player in the league. Brisbane, I went and watched them play in the preseason. Tyrell Harrison, he could find himself in there. He could kind of play a Sam Froling role for the Brisbane Bullets. I think Keandre Cook, one of the three imports for the Bullets, he shoots the ball really well. He might be an impact guy, but not having a player in the top 15 probably is a little bit of a red flag for that team's success going in the NBL 25, but it doesn't leave them out of the running, because as we know from last season, a team like Illawarra, who is languishing at the bottom of the ladder, they make a change and all of a sudden they're in the top four. Anything is possible in this league, and it's so unpredictable, and, that's why we love it so much.
Of all of the names that didn't make it to the top 15, which one do you think is the one that will cause the most reaction?
Well, I think, like Chris Golding, we talked about this. Nathan Sobey is one of the guys that he's a lightning rod throughout the league. So many people love him, and then there are people that are very critical of the way he plays. And I love for a guy like Sobey to do well, because I understand his passion. I know how much he loves the game, and I love the athleticism. And again, a guy in his mid-30s who is defying Father Time. His athleticism is still elite. And again, I mentioned it when we discussed Derek Walton Jr. I think he's going to have a very good season. And in all probability, he is going to feature in this top 15 list at season's end.
Lastly, of all of the names on this list, who do you think's got the most upside? So when we get back together at the end of the regular season and we do this list once more and you've had an entire body of work to look at, who do you think's going to be the one that jumps up the most?
Jalen Adams, no doubt. I think he's the one probably under the greatest scrutiny here. But when you're under that type of pressure, if you can meet it or exceed it, then the rewards are magnified and multiplied. So Jalen Adams has a real chance now to kind of become a historic figure in our league. I think an MVP and a championship is well within the realm of possibilities for him this season. So if he was to do that again, that gives him 2-2. He moves into elite categories.
This has been a lot of fun. I'm suggesting it's probably not going to be a lot of fun for you in the next 24 hours or maybe at the start of the season. But full credit to you. As I said in the earlier episode, I know how much work you've put into this and I know how long you've spent talking to different people and making phone calls and seeing how people are going in the preseason as well. So well done to you.
Thank you, Jack.
Now we see how it all pans out.
Let's go.
Don't forget, of course, you can leave all of your comments on the NBL social media. The NBL 25 season is not far away, and this list right here are the key playmakers heading into the season. Thanks for being with us. The clock's ticking. We'll see you for the start of NBL 25.